As I said in the chat box, we will begin with Strange Meeting. We have a number of poems with you. We have two from Wilfred Owen, Anthem for the Doomed Youth and Strange Meeting. We have two from T.S. Eliot, Hollow Men and Marina. We have two from Sylvia Plath, Ariel and Colossus. And I also hope that you have been provided with the term end questions. I devised these questions as term end questions for you. I do not know much about how the internals work, but these questions might be used for internals, and these questions might be used for term end questions, term end things also. So we will begin with Wilfred Owen's Strange Meeting, and you have these two questions. We will keep these two questions in mind while we would be discussing the poem. So Anthem, we have this just one question from Strange Meeting, that is the comment on the use of images in Strange Meeting. So I hope we are on the same page here. We are we understand each other, that this is the only question of 10 marks that I set from this is the only topic of 10 marks that I set from Strange Meeting, because you just have two questions from these two poems, and that is the use of images, or comment on the use of images in Strange Meeting. I hope that you already know who Wilfred Owen is, and I already know. I hope you know that you have read Strange Meeting somewhere. But if you do not know, I'll just briefly introduce Wilfred Owen to you. Wilfred Owen was a First World War soldier and poet. He died in 1917, just a few days, I think a week before the armistice was signed. And he is ironically known as a war poet, where he was actually a very anti-war poet. He was he wrote against the discourse of war. He wrote against anything that stood for war or that justified war. And this poem is a grim imagination of what happens in a war, what is so wrong in a war, what are the bad sides, what are the bad aspects of war. I mean, not just in terms of physical or financial losses, but also in terms of philosophical or spiritual losses. Okay. So I hope all of you have the text in front of you. If you don't, let me know. Strange Meeting. It seemed that out of battle I escaped, down some profound dull tunnel, long since scooped through granites which titanic wars had groined. So it seems to him that the poet Owen, or the speaker, I mean, we have to understand that this is a dramatic monologue actually. I hope you know what a dramatic monologue is, but if you do not know, somebody can just unmute or say that in the chat box, because I am sure that in your undergraduate days you have read Lady of Shalott or My Last Duchess or Porphyria's Lover or something like that, or Ulysses maybe. So in a dramatic monologue there is a speaker, an assumed audience, and a silent listener. So we will see whether these things are there in strange meeting or not. And so it seemed that out of battle I escaped. So the persona that Owen has created, or maybe it is Owen himself, it seems that he has escaped from a battle down some profound dull tunnel. So tunneling or trench warfare was a common aspect of First World War. Trenches were dug where the soldiers would hide themselves and shoot at other soldiers on the other side of the trench. So he imagines the trench as a dull tunnel, but tunnel and trench is different because the tunnel is covered from the top, but a trench is not covered from the top. So he imagines this trench as a dull tunnel. The tunnel perhaps is not dull. The dullness is of the war. The dullness is of you can question that how can war be dull? Well, the dullness is not because there is no action, but there is so much action that people have become dull and numb out of the action. If you understand the meaning of being shell-shocked, so you can get a shock. You can if a shell drops in within your earshot, you might go deaf temporarily or permanently, and you might not be able to move because you are too scared to move. So that might be a signification of the dull tunnel. And now from here onwards itself, from the very second line of the poem, we find that the images have started pouring in. So just a minute. Okay, so long since scooped. So it has been scooped as if somebody scoops an ice cream. It has been dug. It is an ancient tunnel. It is an ancient trench. Through granites which titanic wars had groined. Through granites. Granite is a very tough rock, and yet this tough rock, this strong rock has been bored through. And he imagines titanic wars between titans, mythological creatures in Greek mythology, who were huge, who were big. So it can also be a very big tunnel. Okay? Titanic wars obviously refer to the World War, because for the same reason it was World War, because it was a war on a very, very large scale. However, looking from the post-colonial perspective, we can say that why was it even called a world war? Because more than 60% or 70% of the world was not really involved in that war. Though the war was fought in Africa, even in Asia, the people of Africa or Asia were not directly involved in that. This betrays the Eurocentric notion of the colonial worldview, where since many of the nations in Europe was involved in the war, and since they thought that Europe is the world, that's why perhaps they called it the World War. Okay. Anyway, so the image is that of a tunnel. The image is that of a dull tunnel. The image is that of the entrance to hell itself, because in many popular imaginations we have found that the entrance to to hell, or to a very abominable position, is usually dark and cave like cave is also the, or a tunnel is also the beginning of some kind of a mystery. And there is a popular idea that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but in some tunnels you don't have much light. And also imagine the situation of the soldiers or people who are claustrophobic, and they might be very scared in a dark tunnel. Yet also their encumbered sleepers groaned, too fast in thought or death to be bestirred. So here we find encumbered sleepers, like sleepers, people who are sleeping over there, and they are encumbered. They are like heaped on, one sleeper is heaped on another. So they are not really sleepers, they are dead bodies. And yet these dead bodies are groaning. So the pain of war gets prolonged even beyond life. War disturbs even the dead. The dead, once alive, underwent so much pain when they were alive that even after their death, when they are sleeping, when they are heaped on one another, they are still groaning. Poet imagines that they are either lost in thought or in death. Some people who are lost in thought, if you call them, they will not respond. And thinking or losing oneself in thought will not allow you to be stirred. I mean, if you are dead, no matter how many times somebody calls you, you cannot be brought back to life or to consciousness. And the same happens with people who are lost in thought, whose thoughts are going at a very rapid rate. Then as I probed them, one sprang up and stared with piteous recognition in his fixed eyes. So it was a ritual, it was a thing that happened in the wars, or still happens, that even when you have killed your enemy and there are like bodies strewn all across the field or in the trenches or in the tunnels, the soldiers are encouraged to probe. The soldiers are encouraged to shoot or prick the dead bodies or kick them to see if there is any movement, and if there is any movement, they are supposed to either hold them as hostage, take them prisoners, or kill them. Out of habit, the poet probed, pierced them with his bayonet, kicked them. That's how the probing is done. When he was doing it, one sprang up, one came alive and stared with piteous recognition in his fixed eyes. So his eyes are fixed, his eyes are not moving because there is no life in those eyes. He's a zombie. But there is a piteous recognition. He recognizes the poet. And there is not, the soldier who sprang up does not have hatred or anger against the soldier who killed him, perhaps, but pity. Lifting distressful hands as if to bless, and by his smile I knew that sullen hall, by his dead smile I knew we stood in hell. So he lifted his hands as if to bless. Like in very cliched zombie movies or in cliched horror movies, we have often found that the zombie or the ghost is raising their hands and trying to catch the person who is in front of them, or trying to kill, gag the other person. Here he thinks that this person is raising the hand to bless. Blessing in hell is a very paradoxical image. I mean, you cannot bless people in hell. Like, blessing is something that does not really go with the concept of hell. He smiled, the dead person, the zombie smiled, the zombie soldier smiled, and I knew that sullen hall. So he recognized the hall in which they were in. He recognized the space, the region in which they were fixed. They remained. By his dead smile, I knew we stood in hell. So his smile was such that it made the poet sure, it ensured to the poet that they were in hell. I knew we stood in hell. So he realized that this is nowhere else than hell. So actually he has not escaped a battle. He is actually dead. And that is why after death they are in hell. So this is also a very poignant, this is a very, you can call it a religious, but I can call it a very dark image, a very the image of despondency, the image of despair associated with war. So war leads you to hell. With 1,000 fears, that vision's face was grained. Vision, the soldier was a vision to the poet, or to the persona the poet has created. He calls the dead poet vision. With 1,000 fears. So the person's face was grained, was dotted with 1,000 fears. There were thousands of reasons as to why perhaps the soldier was scared, the soldier was afraid. Just like the encumbered sleepers groaned even after their death, the soldier was still afraid, and his face was grained with thousands of fears, that he had a number of fears even after death. So the horror of the war does not stop at the death of a soldier, but rather follows him even into hell. This is what a proper war can do to one's psychology. And we can include some kind of trauma theory here, that even when the war is over, the soldiers cannot sleep really well. They have post-traumatic stress disorder, generally known as PTSD. So, but this is more, this poem talks about not a psychological but a spiritual crisis, psychological as well as spiritual crisis. Yet no blood reached there. Sorry. Uh, okay. Yet no blood reached there from the upper ground. So the soldier was afraid, the soldier was scared, but no blood. Blood is here a metaphor or a synecdoche for bloodshed, or the problems of the war, or the horrors of the war. The horrors of the war did not reach here from the upper ground. Whatever was happening in the upper ground, on the realm of the living, on earth, not in hell. And still the soldier was very scared. And no guns thumped, or down the flues made moan. In hell, uh, there was no fight going on, and in hell there was no guns that were blazing. Thumping of the guns was not there in hell. Or the flues, like when a missile was fired, or a gas bomb was fired, or a rocket was launched, or a grenade was launched, there was a eerie sound, there was a frightening sound that scared the soldiers, which sounded like a moan. And whenever the soldiers heard this moaning, they knew that their time was up, because some mortar shell, some missile, some gas bomb is going to drop and you're going to die. Strange friend, I said, here is no cause to mourn. So the soldier is saying that, to the other soldier who sprang up upon probing, is saying that you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be you cannot. You don't need to mourn here, because what is done is done. There is no. There is no. Point of mourning, because even if you mourn, mourning is useless here. So that is what Owen might be trying to say, that once you are in hell, there is no point in mourning. What is done is done. None, said the other, save the undone years, the hopelessness. Also, look at the use of this prosodic feature called allision, ALLISION, or half rhyming, or para rhyming, and I think it's called allision. Which, give me a minute. No, I'm using the wrong word here. What is this style called? There's a, in Strange Meeting and in other poems of Owen, we find this used too often. Can't remember. Sometimes it is thought that it's a rhetorical device, but it is not a rhetorical device. Well, what I'm trying to talk about a particular aspect of the poem where you would find that there are, where we think there is a kind of a rhyming going on, but we do not find the rhyming happen, because if you read these two lines, like moan and mourn, and no guns thumped, or down the flues made moan. Strange friend, I said, there is no cause to mourn. Moan, mourn, or undone years and yours. We think that because the last letters of the words are same, there must be a rhyming, there must be a rhyme, but the preceding vowels are different, and that does not allow the words to have a rhyming effect. And I cannot remember the exact word for this feature of poetry for which Owen was really very famous, but it can also be called a para-rhyme or half rhyme. Okay, so let me see if half rhyme can give me up some result. Imperfect rhyming, half rhyme. It has a name, but I cannot remember the name. Well, it will come to my mind sooner or later, and I will try to tell you the name of that particular poetic feature. Anyway, not really associated with the images, but there is a reason as to why this happens, I think, because since this is an anti-war poem, since this is a poem of disharmony, I think Owen is trying to thwart, Owen is trying to frustrate our desire for harmony, our desire for some kind of a balance, where we think that we are having some kind of a rhyme, but balking us, frustrating us of this felicity that we usually have when a rhyming occurs. So rhyming always makes us more comfortable and more songish, we can say. This cannot be made into a, I mean, this can be made into a song, but it is composed in blank verse, and it's not entirely composed in blank verse, but it is composed in para rhyme or half rhyme. So we find an image, we can say a sonar image, an image made up of sound, where there is always some gap between our expectation and what we find in reality. So he says that none, এখানে কোনো কারণ নেই মন করার, other than save the undone years. So the soldiers die very young. They die as young as 19, 18, or maybe even younger. I think Owen died when he was 21, I think. So that's very young. That's not the age for a person to die. And I don't know if you have read this poem in your school, because it was there in the syllabus of West Bengal board. What was the name of the poem by Wilfred Owen? It was a sonnet, Futility. If you have read it, you know Owen from how he presents the futility of war, and the undone years refers to all those years that a soldier, if he had been alive, could have had given to the society. He could have done a lot good to the society. The hopelessness. So now there is no hope. A war means losing all hope for the society, for the next generation, for the youth. So the hopelessness and the undone years are what are something that are making the poet mourn still in this hell. Whatever hope is yours was my life also. So the other soldier thinks that this soldier is alive, and he says that if you live by hope, if you hope to do something with your life, I too had similar hopes. Like when a soldier kills another soldier, then they share similar perspectives. I mean, it is ironical when I consider this, that a soldier is actually, I mean, soldiers of two different nations or two warring nations are actually more alike than they are different. If you think it closely, if you observe this paradox, that two soldiers of the same, of different nations, of warring nations, are actually more alike than the people of their own country. I mean, there is no similarity between our way of life, our way of looking at things, and the way in which the people in army look at things or do things. But if you consider the fact that two soldiers, no matter in which countries they are working in or working for, they usually think alike. They have the same frequencies of thinking. They have the same minds. Anyway, so whatever hope is yours was my life also. So whatever hopes you have with your life, I also had similar hopes: to get married, to have children, to do a good job, to become a farmer, to become an artist, whatever hope that a person has. All those hopes are gone. I went hunting wild after the wildest beauty in the world. So he went into the pursuit of beauty. He went into the pursuit of truth, because I think here Owen is making fun of Keats, because Keats, I mean, in one of his poems, he did write that beauty is truth, truth, beauty. Whatever is beautiful must be true, and whatever is true must be beautiful. So this person went hunting wild after the wildest beauty in the world. So this person, when he was not in the army, when he was not a soldier, he was hankering after beauty, whether physical or spiritual, but he saw beauty in the world, beauty in the universe, beauty in everything. And now everything has turned ugly. Which lies not calm in eyes or braided hair, but mocks the steady running of the hour. So this beauty is not physical. The beauty is, we usually think that the eyes of a beautiful woman are the most beautiful things in the world, or braided hair. Braided hair মানে বিনুনি করা চুল, লম্বা চুল, এগুলোতে আমরা সাধারণত মানে বিউটিটাকে দেখার চেষ্টা করি, বা আমাদের মনে হয় যে বিউটি ইজ ম্যানিফেস্টেড ইন দ্য আইজ অফ দ্য বিলাভেড অর দ্য হেয়ার অফ দ্য বিলাভেড, হোয়াটএভার. But mocks the steady running of the hour. But this beauty that he went after mocked the steady running of the hour. কোন বিউটি এরকম করতে পারে যে স্টেডি রানিং অফ আওয়ারকে মক করতে পারে? মানে এমন একটা বিউটি যেটার উপরে টাইমের কোনো ইফেক্ট হয় না. what kind of beauty is that? Can somebody suggest that what is this beauty which cannot be affected by time? Pratyasha, would you like to try? Pratyasha? Shagota, would you like to think about this, that what beauty mocks, what kind of beauty can mock time itself? or anybody can answer, like unmuting yourself, or you can like type in the answer in the chat box. Just make a wild guess, like what kind of beauty can mock, can defy time. Beauty of one's soul. Hmm. Okay, that is acceptable, that the, the a beautiful soul will not be affected by time. Anything else? I already gave you a hint when I said that Owen was making fun of Keats, or was he? Well, I think the beauty that mocks. The question is, what kind of beauty can mock the steady running of the hour, which lies not calm in eyes or braided hair, physical beauty নয়, but mocks the steady running of the hour. এমন কি বিউটি হতে পারে যেটা টাইমকে ডিফাই করে দিচ্ছে, টাইমকে মক করছে? সেটা অভিরূপ বলছে যে it's the beauty of one's soul, which is okay. But what I think, yeah, beauty of the cause of sorrow. What do you mean by that? Beauty of the cause of sorrow. What are you trying to say? Cause of sorrow is death. So you're saying that death is beautiful, and death, of course, can mock the steady running of the hours. Is that what you're trying to say? Beauty of one's inner self, like soul, beauty of wisdom. Yeah, okay, yes, wisdom can defy time, because whatever is wise today will be wise for a very long time to come, but maybe not for eternity. But beauty, wisdom can be beautiful, and it can go on for a very long length of time. Well, the beauty that I think is being talked about here. Yes, Ankon?
Is he referring to the ghost he met across in the forest?
In the forest?
Sorry,
In the tunnel?
tunnel.
Uh, Ghost. Is a ghost beautiful? But I think this soldier is saying that he went hunting wild after the wildest beauty in the world, which lies not calm in eyes or braided hair, but mocks the steady running of the hour. So he was trying to go after a kind of beauty, a form of beauty that makes fun of time. I think truth is the beauty, because I already said that. It's not that he's making fun or satirizing Keats, but one of the influences on Owen was that of Keats, and Keats did say that whatever is beautiful is true, and whatever is true is beautiful. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Uh, so maybe he was after this philosophical truth, maybe he was after the truth of the war, or maybe he was after the truth of life, or just truth in its rawest philosophical meaning. Okay, which I think, and the soul wisdom, these are all right answers, I think. And if it grieves richlier than here. And if we are in pain, I mean, there is a reason to mourn also here. If it grieves richlier than here. Because if the person would have had understood the truth, or would have had made the truth of life known to the people in general, then the world would have been a better place. And that is why he is grieving all the more here, because he could not do it. There is good reason to grieve, because once he is in hell, once he is dead, there is no way in which he can do anything that he wanted to do earlier. Okay. For by my glee might many men have laughed, and of my weeping something had been left, which must die now. So why is he grieving here? Because if he had been happy, glee, happiness, ওর আনন্দটাকে দেখে, ওর খুশিটাকে দেখে, ওর জয়টাকে দেখে অন্য অনেক লোকে হয়তো আনন্দ পেত, মেবি at least his parents, his friends, his family. And of my weeping something had been left, and because he is dead and people are weeping, something is left unfinished. And now, which must die now. So there is no way in which he could redeem whatever he could finish, whatever is left undone. And of course, the life undone, the marvels that he could have had achieved, maybe he could have had become a poet like Owen, he could have had become a scientist, he could have had become an educator, he could have become a statesman, and he could have had done so much for the world. But all of these possibilities, all of these opportunities are now dead, and this is very tragic. And that is at the core of tragedy, where we come to the knowledge that something which could have been great, something which could have had given us a lot, something which had a lot of potential, is wasted. And the sense of waste is the crux of tragedy. ট্র্যাজেডির মূল জিনিসটাই হচ্ছে যে যখন আমরা এটা বুঝতে পারি যে এত কিছু হতে পারতো, এত ভালো কিছু হতে পারতো, সেটার জায়গায় এত খারাপ কিছু হয়ে গেছে। ঠিক আছে, তাই জন্য এই ডেথটাকে আমরা ট্র্যাজিক বলি। আর কোনো ইয়াং পার্সনের ডেথটাকে আমরা স্পেশালি ট্র্যাজিক বলি, কারণ সেই ইয়াং পার্সনটা অনেক ভালো কিছু করতে পারতো নিজের লাইফ দিয়ে, কিন্তু war or accident or some kind of other situations have led to the loss, waste of life, waste of opportunities. I mean, the truth untold, the pity of war, the pity war distilled. In fact, Owen যখন মানে Owen একটা প্রিফেসে বোধহয় এটা বলেছিল, মানে ওর যে কবিতার বইটা সেটা ওর মৃত্যুর পরে বেরিয়েছিল, কিন্তু ও একটা মানে ভেবে রেখেছিল যে ওর কবিতাগুলোকে একসাথে ও পাবলিশ করবে, এবং সেটার জন্য একটা প্রিফেস লিখেছিল যে মাই সাবজেক্ট ইজ নট পোয়েট্রি, মাই সাবজেক্ট ইজ ওয়ার, দ্য পিটি ওয়ার ডিস্টিলস, যে পিটিটা ওয়ার আমাদের সামনে তুলে ধরে। তো সেটাই এখানেও বলছে যে আমার যে ট্রুথটা আমি বলতে চাইছিলাম, যেটা সবসময় আনটোল্ড থেকে যাবে, সেটা হচ্ছে দ্য পিটি অফ ওয়ার, দ্য ওয়েস্ট, দ্য শিয়ার ওয়েস্টেজ অফ ওয়ার। আমি এই কথাটা লোকের সামনে আনতে চাইছিলাম যে ওয়ার ইজ ইউজলেস, অ্যান্ড হিয়ার উই ফাইন্ড দ্য অ্যান্টি ওয়ার অ্যাটিটিউড অফ Owen. Owen's attitude to war is presented here. If you have this question that how is Owen an anti-war poet, it is here that we realize that Owen is talking strongly against the war by saying that the war is pitiful. The pity war distilled like the waste that the war creates. Now men will go content with what we spoiled, or discontent boil bloody and be spilled. Now he makes a prediction that after the war, whoever is victorious will go home happy, will take away all the spoils, will exploit, will loot the cities that they have conquered, or the people who have lost, they are not all dead, they are discontent, and one day their anger will spill, and then they will spill blood again. This prophecy came true less than or around 20 years, because the Second World War, one of the reasons for the Second World War led by Germany was because Germany was unhappy as a nation. Germany was humiliated by the Axis powers and Allied powers, and the Treaty of Versailles was very humiliating for Germany, and Germany simmered under the humiliation, waiting for its turn to take revenge. And Hitler found the opportunity, mustered the pro-war forces, and led Germany into one of the most disastrous wars that Germany ever fought. This prediction came true. They will be swift with swiftness of the tigress, none will break ranks, though nations trek from progress. So here the nations are compared, the people are compared, the warmongers are compared with tigers and tigress, actually tigresses, because a tigress is more violent, a tigress is more furious, and hunts better than tigers do. So they will be swift with the swiftness of a tigress. They will be watching, they will be crouching, they will be waiting for ambush, people who have lost. And none will break ranks. Nobody will disband their armies. They will keep their armies. They will always be paying for them. They will be taking up a huge expense for their armies, though they might trek from progress. So they will lose their progress. They will not be progressing because they will be spending more on defense than they should spend on hospitals, health, education or science. That is true with all our nations, I think, because even India spends so much on defense, so much on maintaining an army, than they spend on education or health or developmental activities or humanitarian endeavors. So does China. Courage was mine and I had mystery, wisdom was mine and I had mastery. So once upon a time I had courage and I had mystery. I had the knowledge, I had the mystical knowledge. I was wise, like mystical people are. I could see the future. I was wise, I had wisdom, and I had mastery. Mastery over language, mastery over the arts of expression, mastery over maybe science, manufacturing, engineering, who knows. To miss the march of this retreating world into vain citadels that are not walled. The world is retreating. The world is not progressing. We are not progressing. We are regressing. and we are regressing into what? Vain citadels. Citadel is where walled cities found in the ancient world, and they were very narrow and they were very isolated from each other, and thus their progress was not much. But that is not the case with all the citadels. But these citadels, which are not even walled, like the modern cities are not really walled, yet we are regressing into our narrow mindedness, orthodox ideas, religious bigotries, and so on and so forth. But these are all vain, these are all useless. এগুলোর কোনোটারই কোনো মানে নেই, কোনোটারই কোনো ভ্যালু নেই। Just a minute. Okay, so then when much blood had clogged their chariot wheels, I would go up and wash them from sweet wells. One day it will so happen that they will spill so much blood that there will be rivers of blood on earth, and their chariot wheels, their weapons of destruction, their tanks, their jeeps, their aeroplanes, they will be clogged with blood. এত রক্তক্ষরণ করবে, এত রক্তর ওপর দিয়ে যাবে, এত মানুষকে মারবে যে রক্ত তো খুব তাড়াতাড়ি শক্ত হয়ে যায়, থকথকে হয়ে যায়, তো তাদের প্রগ্রেসটা একেবারে আটকে যায়। তখন আই উড গো আপ অ্যান্ড ওয়াশ দেম ফ্রম সুইট ওয়েলস অফ উইজডম, স্পিরিচুয়ালিটি, লাভ, ফ্রেন্ডশিপ, এগুলোর থেকে তারা এগুলোর সাহায্যে তারা সে কী করবে, সে ওই রক্ত মাখা ওই চাকাগুলোকে ধুইয়ে দেবে এবং তাতে আবার চাকাগুলো এগোতে থাকবে। The machinery of the world will start moving once more when the world will be free of violence and the world will be free of bloodshed. Even with truths that lie too deep for taint, I would have poured my spirit without stint. এমন কিছু সত্য আছে যেগুলো এতই গভীর যেখানে রক্তটার পৌঁছতে পারে না। আমরা আগেই দেখেছিলাম যে আওয়েন বলছে বা পার্সোনাটা বলছে যে এখানে কেন তুমি মন করছো, এখানে তো ওপরের ব্লাড বা গানস এগুলো সব আসতে পারবে না, হিয়ার উই আর সেফ। ভাবাও, ইম্যাজিন করো, ইন হেল দে আর সেফ ফ্রম ওয়ার। সো হোয়াট ইজ ওয়ার? আমরা হেলকে ভয় পাই, বা হেল একটা বিবলিক্যাল ইমেজ অফ আলটিমেট ডিসপেয়ার, কিন্তু ইভেন hell is not scary than the war is. The war is more scary than the hell is. Okay. So, but there are truths which cannot be tainted, which cannot be destroyed, which cannot be manipulated by politicians or warmongers. What is the truth? The truth, I think one of the truths about the life is that you are not going to take anything with you after death. Like, why is there then so much struggle and strife for the material things of the world? Maybe the truth is that if we do not fight and if we live in harmony, then perhaps we will have more progress, we will be more happy, rather than if we keep fighting amongst ourselves. Unity will bear more fruit than strife and division. Maybe that is the truth, or maybe there is something deeper that my shallow mind cannot get. But anyway, the truth is beyond manipulations, the truth is beyond the manipulative ability of um, the politicians and the warmongers. I would have poured my spirit without stint. So he would have had done everything in his power to make the people love each other, make the war stop. He could have had been the prophet of peace, but not through wounds, not on the cess of war. Foreheads of men have bled where no wounds were. So he would not have had used strength, he would not have had wounded the other, he would not have had used a war to stop war, he would not have had been violent. And he brings in the image of Jesus by saying that foreheads of men have bled where no wounds were. So why did Jesus die for us? He did not have to die for us. His forehead had bled without any reason. Like he was uh, forced to wear the crown of spikes, and his forehead bled. He did not have any reason to do so many things, so many good things for the human beings, but he gave up his life, he sacrificed his life to uh, for the mankind, for the betterment of the world. And perhaps this prophet of peace, a disciple of Jesus, might have had done the same. I am the enemy you killed, my friend. I knew you in this dark, for so you frowned. Yesterday, through me, as you jabbed and killed, I parried, but my hands were loath and cold. Let us sleep now. Strangely, only this line is kind of in double quotes. There were some other lines which were in double quotes where the poet was saying something. Strange friend, there is no cause to mourn, and then there were no double quotes. But now, at the end of this poem, we find these double quotes, and I think it is both the persona who is dead and the poet and the soldier he killed who are speaking all together. There is a kind of a unison, there is a kind of a amalgamation of the consciousnesses of the uh, people. I am the enemy you killed, my friend. So now they are friends because they are now in hell. They are dead. They have no enmity. In fact, even before they were killing each other, there was no enmity between them. Like, why do we hate Pakistan or China, and we are dismissive of the people of either China or Pakistan? We do not have any enmity with the people over there, and they do not have any enmity with us. It's our governments, it's our politicians who for their own goals wants to have this fight for as long as we can have the fight. Or America does not want us to be friends with Pakistan because where else will they sell their weapons to? And the same for China. So he recognizes this person even in the dark, because the day the soldier killed the other soldier, the poet killed the soldier, he was frowning, he was angry, he was aggressive. As he jabbed, he tried to put his bayonet in his stomach and killed him. I parried, I tried to avoid. I did my best to live, but I could not. But my hands were loath and cold. So in the cold, they were left alone in the trenches. Many people died out of the cold. Many people died out of hunger and other diseases rather than by the bullets of the enemies. So he could not fight well because his hands were already cold. his body was stiff with the cold. He could not fight well. What you did. Now let us sleep. Don't disturb us in our sleep anymore, because this is what we have got. Though this is what not we deserved, but this is what we are stuck with, and better not disturb us any further. Okay, so that's it with this poem, Strange Meeting. If you have any questions, any doubts, you can point them out, or we will go into an Anthem for the Doomed Youth, which is, I think, a shorter poem than this one. Okay. If you do not have any questions, we will move into this poem, Anthem for the Doomed Youth, which is also definitely a anti-war poem, less philosophically dense, less images, yes, but equally anti-war, equally poignant, equally depressing. And we will see Anthem for the Doomed Youth as an anti-war poem. So let's see what this is about. Okay, and I think this is a sonnet. Yeah, this is a sonnet, and the sonnet is equally divided in. The sonnet is divided into 8 and 6 parts. The 8 line stanza is known as the octave, and the 6th line conclusion is the sestate. Okay, octave and sestate. So doomed youth are those people, those youth who are the soldiers, of course. They are doomed because they have been chosen for the war, and they have been recruited to represent their countries for the war, and they are just going to die over there. They are cannon fodder. What passing bells for those who die as cattle? যারা গরু ছাগলের মতন যুদ্ধেতে লড়তে যাচ্ছে, তাদের জন্য প্রেয়ার করে কি লাভ? মানে একসময় এরকম হতো, যখন যুদ্ধেতে সোলজাররা যেত, তো যে গ্রামের ওপর দিয়ে যেত বা তাদের নিজেদের গ্রাম থেকে যখন তারা শয়ে শয়ে বেরিয়ে যেত, তখন গ্রামের প্রিস্ট বা অন্য যে লোকরা থাকতো, তারা বেল বাজাতো, তাদের মানে তাদের জীবনের জন্য প্রে করতো আর কি। What passing bells for those who die as cattle? But these people, they knew that they are going to die as cattle, that they are going to be slaughtered. তাহলে ওদের জন্য অত আড়ম্বর করার কি দরকার? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. তাদের জন্য একটা জিনিসই বরাদ্দ আছে, সেটা হচ্ছে যুদ্ধের যে গানসগুলো, যুদ্ধের যে ক্যাননসগুলো, তাদের অ্যাঙ্গার, তাদের রেজ, তাদের আগুনটাই তাদের জন্য বরাদ্দ আছে, বেলস নয়। whether wedding bells or the bells of the church, পিস, তাদের জন্য নয়। তাদের জন্য একটা জিনিসই বরাদ্দ রয়েছে, সেটা হচ্ছে গানস। গুলি খেয়ে ব্লাস্ট হয়ে মরার জন্যই তারা জন্মেছে। Only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle. can patter out their hasty orisons. রাইফেলের থেকে র্যাপিড যে স্টাটারিংটা হচ্ছে, ট্যাট 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 করে যে গুলিগুলো বেরোচ্ছে, ক্যান প্যাটার আউট দেয়ার হেস্টি অরাইজন্স. Hasty because they die too soon, they die very early, that's why it's hasty, because they are young and so they die, they haste to death. And orison is prayer. It's a very old English word for prayer, and we, the only prayer that is there for them is the stuttering of the rifle's rapid rattle. মানে ওই ধরো আমাদের যদি যে ঘন্টাটা আমরা বাজাই পুজো করার সময় টং 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 করে বাজে, সেই আওয়াজটা ওদের জন্য নয়. ওদের জন্য কি বরাদ্দ আছে? ওই হুড়মুড় করে গুলি চলছে, ক্যাট 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 করে যে রাইফেলটা, অটোমেটিক রাইফেলসগুলো, মেশিন গানসগুলো চলছে, সেগুলোই হচ্ছে তাদের জন্য প্রেয়ার. নো মকারিজ নাও ফর দেম, তাদেরকে মক করো না. নো প্রেয়ার্স নট বেলস, ওই দুয়া করে পুজো করে বেল বাজিয়ে তাদের যে অবস্থাটা সেটাকে নিয়ে ইয়ার্কি মেরো না. নো মকারিজ ফর দেম. নর এনি ভয়েস অফ মোর্নিং সেভ দ্য choirs. Choir are the people who sing in the church, and they also sing during the funerals, during the service, and when they are dead, তাদেরকে একজনই মন করবে, তারা হচ্ছে ওই কয়েরগুলো. আবার আমার ধারণা কয়েরের আর একটাও এখানে মানে আছে. I think this choir refers to the coil, and there's a pun here, coil of the guns. যখন রিকয়েলটা হয় তখন একটা আওয়াজ বেরোয় আর কি গানটার থেকে, which Owen imagines it to be that of a mourning sound. করে যদি আমরা কাঁদি, আমরা রুদন করি যেটা, সেরকম হয়তো একটা আওয়াজ এই যখন রিকয়েল হয় গানের তখন বেরোতে পারে. তো ওটাই হচ্ছে ওদের জন্য মোর্নিং. ওদের জন্য কাঁদার আর কেউ নেই, কারণ ওরা তো ওই খালে বিলে মাঠে পড়ে ওখানে ওরা পচে যাবে, ওদেরকে ভালো করে কেউ পুঁতবেও না হয়তো. বাট সো দের ইজ নো মোর্নিং, ওদের ফ্যামিলি মেম্বাররা ওখানে থাকবে না কান্নাকাটি করার জন্য. The shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling for them from sad shires. ওদের জন্য কি আছে? ওদের জন্য কি বরাদ্দ রয়েছে না shrill, demented choirs. ওই যে ওই ফ্লিউজ মোন যে আগের পোয়েমটা আমরা পড়লাম, তো ওই যে কয়ের মানে ওই একসাথে 50টা রকেট হয়তো লঞ্চ হয়েছে, একসাথে 50টা গ্রেনেড লঞ্চ হয়েছে, করে একটা আওয়াজ হয় আর কি. বা ওই যখন যুদ্ধটা শুরু হয় বা কোনো এয়ার রেড হয় তখন যে আওয়াজটা আর কি, ইট সাউন্ডস লাইক আ ওয়েল, ইট সাউন্ডস লাইক আ মর্নিং সং. ওদের জন্য ওই সংটাই চলবে, ওদের জন্য ওটাই থাকবে আর কি. বা শেলগুলো যখন পড়ছে তখন যে আওয়াজটা আর কি, সেইটা ওদের কানে শেষ মুহূর্তে অবধি ওদের কানে ওটাই বাজবে. বিউগলস, যুদ্ধের দামামা বাজবে, যুদ্ধের জন্য ওদেরকে ডাকা হবে ফ্রম স্যাড শায়ার্স. শায়ার মানে হচ্ছে কোনো জায়গা, সাম প্লেস, সাম ভিলেজ অর টাউন. দ্য শায়ার্স আর নট স্যাড, it is the people who are sad. Okay, it is the soldiers who are sad, and the bugle of the war calls them to their death. What candles may be held to speed them all? এমন কি ক্যান্ডেল হতে পারে যেটা দিয়ে সবাইকে ওরা যারা মরতে যাচ্ছে, আমরা জানি ওরা মরতে যাচ্ছে, ওদেরকে ক্যান্ডেল দেখিয়ে কি হবে? ক্যান্ডেল দিয়ে ওদেরকে আমরা আশীর্বাদ করার চেষ্টা করব, তাতে ওদের কি যাবে আসবে? হোয়াট ইজ অল দিস hypocrisy? What is all this show off for the people who know they are going to die? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. ওরা যে হাত দিয়ে টাটা করছে গাড়ির মধ্যে বসে, সেইখানে ওদের মানে কোনো ইমোশন নেই, কিন্তু ওদের চোখের মধ্যে একটা হোপলেসনেসের ভাব রয়ে গেছে, বা ওদের চোখে জল আসছে যে ওদেরকে ছেড়ে ওদেরকে যেতে হবে। সেইটা আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি ওদের চোখের মধ্যে, চোখের থেকে জল ছলছল করছে, সেটাই গ্লিমার, চকচক করছে আর কি। মানে জলটা যখন চোখের মধ্যে আসছে তখন চোখটা চকচক করে ওঠে, ওটাই কিন্তু আসল গুড বাই। ওই হাত নেড়ে গুড বাই করাটা গুড বাই নয়। The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. তো pallor of the girls' brows মানে যে মানুষগুলো যে মেয়েরা হয়তো, যে মেয়েদের ভালোবাসাটা ওরা পেল না, বা যারা ওদের ভালোবাসার মানুষ ছিল, তাদের প্যালার, তাদের কালিমা, তাদের কষ্টটা ওই মেয়েদের ব্রাউজ, ওই মেয়েদের চোখের মধ্যে দেখা যাচ্ছে। তাদের চোখে কালি পড়ে গেছে কাঁদতে কাঁদতে, বা তাদের চোখ ফুলে গেছে। শ্যাল বি দেয়ার পল, শ্যাল বি দেয়ার সরো, শ্যাল বি দেয়ার ডেথ। কারণ তারা জানে যে মেয়েরা আর্মি মেনদেরকে হয়তো ভালোবাসছে, বা আর্মি মেনদেরকে বিয়ে করেছে বা ভালোবাসে। তারা জানে যে এরা আর কোনোদিনও ফেরত আসবে না, এবং তাদের চোখের কালিমাতে, তাদের চোখের জলেই কিন্তু বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে এদের মৃত্যু নিশ্চিত। দেয়ার ফ্লাওয়ার্স দ্য টেন্ডারনেস অফ পেশেন্ট মাইন্ডস, ওদের যে মানে কি ফ্লাওয়ার অ্যাকচুয়ালি ওরা দিতে পারে সেটা হচ্ছে পেশেন্ট মাইন্ড, দ্য টেন্ডারনেস অফ পেশেন্ট মাইন্ড। মানে they have to patiently wait either for the beloved to come back, the lover to come back, or to hear the death of the person. কিন্তু এইটার মাঝে যে সময়টা, সেইটাকে কাটানো খুব মুশকিল। মরে গেল, কিন্তু কোনো খবর নেই, মানে মাসের পর মাস। সেইটাকে কিভাবে এই মেয়েরা, এই যারা ভালোবাসছে আর কি, এই লাভারদের, সোলজারদেরকে, তারা কিভাবে সহ্য করবে? হাউ উইল দে ডু ইট? বিকজ দে হ্যাভ পেশেন্ট মাইন্ডস। আর পেশেন্স ছাড়া কিছু করারও নেই, কি করবে? অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ইজ দ্য ট্রু ফ্লাওয়ার, দ্যাট ইজ দ্য ফ্লাওয়ার দ্যাট দে ক্যান অফার টু দ্য soldiers who are going to die in the battlefield. And for these people, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. যখনই বিকেল হয়ে যাবে তখন তারা, আমরা যখন বিকেল হয় তখন আমরা পর্দা দিয়ে দিই, তখন আমরা জানলা দরজা বন্ধ করে দিই যাতে মশা না ঢোকে, বা ঠান্ডা, ওদের দেশে ঠান্ডাটা না ঢোকে, বা আমরা আমাদের ঘরের মধ্যে রিট্রিট করি। তো আর এক সময় কি হতো, যখন মানে সারাদিন যুদ্ধ হতো, সকাল থেকে বিকেলবেলা অবধি, যতক্ষণ না রাত্রির হয়ে যাচ্ছে ততক্ষণ যুদ্ধ হতো, যতক্ষণ চোখে দেখতে পাওয়া যাচ্ছিল ততক্ষণ যুদ্ধ হতো। এখন তো সবসময় যুদ্ধ হয়। তো বিকেল হয়ে গেলে তারা আর যুদ্ধ করতো না, বাট বিকেলবেলা তখন বডি কাউন্টিং হতো, কজন মারা গেল, কাদের জীবনে কার্টেন নেমে আসলো। যেই ডাস্ক হতো, যেই বিকেল সন্ধ্যা হতো, তখন ওরা খুঁজতে বেরোতো যে কে কে মারা গেছে, কে কে আহত হয়েছে। তো সেটা আমাদের জীবনে যেমন যেমন থিয়েটারে চলে আসে, একটা পর্দা পড়ে যায়, তেমনি আমাদের জীবনেও দেখা যাচ্ছে, এই সোলজারদের জীবনেও দেখা যাচ্ছে যে ওই পর্দাটা পড়ে গেছে। সো if this is not anti-war, this shows war in its true format, in its true feature. What is the pain, uh, what is the downside of a war, which we think is a brave thing, which we think is a courageous thing to do. We do it to protect our country, so called. So this is how he brings in, through pity, through pain, he tries to show that how useless a war really truly is. Okay, if you have any questions, we can take them, or we can stop here. In the next class, we will be taking up Eliot's Holloman and Marina, and then we will go for Sylvia Plath. So I think 2 more classes would be. I don't know if I can finish Holloman in an hour or so, but we'll try. We'll see what happens. So 2 more classes, and we might be done with our syllabus, if I'm not missing anything. Okay. So do you have any questions? Okay, all right. So you may leave the meeting for today, and we will meet next week.